Hey everybody, it's Mike Schellenberger. The Biden administration today admitted that it asked the Saudis to wait until after the midterm elections next month before cutting oil production, but it denies it did so for political reasons. Here's National Economic Advisor Brian Deese.
There's some accusation that you're putting the polls before America's energy security. Brian, the Saudis themselves said this morning that the US requested a 1-month delay to the OPEC Plus output. I wonder why that would be. Brian, can you tell me whether you did ask the Saudis for a 1-month delay to that decision? Are they telling the truth?
Look, we clearly communicated our views to OPEC members that we thought it was short-sighted for them to take the action that they were contemplating, and they announced. With respect to the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, this was a calibrated decision to address the real issues in the market. We talked to U.S. industry last winter. We identified that there was about a 1 million barrel a day gap between what they were producing this winter and what they said that they could get production to by late this fall.
Deese makes it sound like the Biden administration has been working with American oil and gas producers, but it hasn't been. Biden has issued fewer oil and gas leases than any president since World War II. He killed a major oil refinery expansion in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and Biden and his administration has repeatedly promised to,
I guarantee you, we're going to end fossil fuel.
We will rid ourselves from our current dependence on fossil fuels.
Still, Deese insists this wasn't for political reasons.
Brian, again, it's a really straight question. Did you ask the Saudis to delay that decision for a month? Is it true or not?
What I will say clearly is that the communications that we've had with OPEC members and continuing have been based on our assessment of the economic circumstances of supply and demand in global oil markets.
Again, they're suggesting it's a political one, that your strategy is political, that your effort to get energy prices is a 1-month story.
I understand what they're suggesting, and what I'm saying to you is that our strategy, I understand what they are suggesting, and what I'm saying to you is that our strategy has always been grounded in an assessment of the economics of the situation and what is prudent.
The Saudis don't see it that way. In an open letter sent earlier today, the government of Saudi Arabia said it rejects any dictates, actions, or efforts to distort its noble objectives to protect the global economy. The Wall Street Journal reports that in August, the Saudis had planned to push OPEC to raise oil production by 500,000 barrels a day in an effort to please President Biden, but its crown prince ordered the increase lowered to a token 100,000 barrels a day after the Biden visit. Why? Because he felt insulted by Biden, perhaps even by Biden's insistence on a fist bump rather than a handshake. After that, reports the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. State Department's energy security envoy sent the Saudi energy minister an email accusing him of breaking his word, promising a larger increase. That email angered the Saudi energy minister and strengthened his resolve to forge an oil policy independent of the United States. Over the next several weeks, the Biden administration frantically tried to persuade the Saudis and other OPEC members not to cut production. Biden administration talking points described a potential OPEC production cut as a, quote, total disaster, and said the Biden administration would view it as a hostile act. One official involved in the process told CNN that the White House is, quote, having a spasm and panicking. Another called White House efforts desperate. None of it worked. If anything, it only angered the Saudis more. And so in September, the Wall Street Journal reports the Saudis lobbied other OPEC members to back OPEC's first production cut since the pandemic. Things have now completely spiraled out of control. The Biden administration is now accusing the Saudis of supporting Russia in its war in Ukraine, which has further offended the Saudis. In their statement, the Saudis stress that they support United Nations resolutions on the Ukraine war and places high importance for all countries to adhere to the United Nations Charter, principles of international law, and rejects any infringement on the sovereignty of countries over their territories. Biden has done what seemed impossible. He has given the Saudis an upper hand in their relationship with the U.S. He's even given them a chance to lecture the world about their commitment to human rights. This coming from a country that killed and dismembered a Washington Post journalist. Instead of begging the Saudis to maintain or increase high levels of oil production, the Biden administration could have simply allowed for expanded domestic production. It didn't, because it's controlled by pro-scarcity environmentalists. Biden has thus delivered the worst of all worlds: a coming shortage of oil, the de-industrialization of Europe, and a stronger alliance between the Saudis and Russia. Civilization depends on cheap energy, and we are right to expect that our political leaders put the provision of it above electoral politics.